If two people are genuinely meant to find their way back to each other, there is one universal pattern that eventually reveals itself. It does not matter how completely different their lives may be, or how strange and unexpected their first encounter seems. This one element almost always appears before anything else. Most people cling to the belief that destiny should feel gentle and effortless from the very beginning. They imagine it arriving through instant comfort, uncomplicated affection, and that immediate sensation that every missing piece has finally fallen perfectly into place. They picture two strangers meeting, exchanging a look, sharing a smile, and somehow knowing in that very moment that they have found their forever. But real destiny rarely works that way. True fate often arrives quietly, and then it turns your entire world upside down. It does not immediately create harmony in your life. Instead, it can create complete disruption. When two people are genuinely meant to cross paths in a meaningful way, the universe does not always hurry to bring them together permanently. Instead, it can create distance. It can separate them, challenge their beliefs, and force each person to look much deeper within themselves. It breaks down the false illusions they did not even realize they were carrying. And this process is not necessarily designed to be cruel. It is a process of preparation. If you believe that two souls can truly be destined for one another, take a moment to like this video. Because before two destined people can successfully create a life together, they often have to experience a profound transformation within themselves. If two people are genuinely meant to share a future, there is one important stage that repeatedly appears along the journey. So many people assume that destiny should look like immediate happiness. They imagine two people meeting, everything naturally falling into place, and life suddenly becoming effortless and peaceful. Yet authentic destiny rarely arrives inside such a perfect package. Real fate often begins by disturbing your life before it begins making sense. When two individuals are genuinely meant to be together, the universe does not necessarily rush them straight into romance. Instead, it can create a powerful rift between them. It breaks down their expectations, challenges what they believed they wanted, and gradually reshapes who they are as individuals. This pattern appears again and again, and this is one of the biggest things people misunderstand about destined love. They expect it to feel completely comfortable from the first moment, almost like entering a safe place where nothing can hurt them. But destined love rarely begins with comfort. It begins with recognition. The first powerful sign of a deep connection is not always peacefulness. It is intense recognition. You meet someone, and something deep inside you reacts, before your conscious mind can even understand what is happening. You may not feel peaceful in that moment. You may not feel completely safe, stable, or certain about this person. You might not even understand why their presence affects you so strongly. Yet something inside you feels recognized. It can feel as though they notice parts of your soul that you usually keep hidden from everyone else, and perhaps even hidden from yourself. That experience can be incredibly confusing because most people expect real love to feel calming, soothing, and reassuring. Yet a connection that carries profound meaning can sometimes feel deeply uncomfortable in the beginning. That discomfort does not automatically mean the person is wrong for you. Sometimes it means they are revealing something within you that you have been avoiding for a very long time. They can mirror your deepest fears, your old wounds, your insecurities, and the emotional work you never finished. They do not simply see the carefully polished version of yourself that you show to society every day. They seem to look beneath the surface and touch the deeper layers of who you are. And that level of emotional exposure can feel threatening. It can make you want to run, withdraw, or create distance. That is exactly why some destined connections feel so intense instead of immediately easy. They create powerful awareness long before they create lasting closeness. They force you to notice what needs to change inside yourself before you can truly build something healthy with another person. This is also why people who are meant to share a meaningful future do not always remain together during the beginning of their story. If two people are genuinely destined to build something lasting, life can sometimes force separation early in the journey. That distance is not always meaningless. It can happen for very specific and deeply important reasons. One person may still be carrying unresolved emotional pain from the past. Another may be frightened of lowering their defenses and becoming genuinely vulnerable. One person might still be struggling to recognize their own value, while the other may be attempting to love from a place of fear instead of emotional security. Sometimes both individuals are still developing, healing, and becoming the people they need to become. And when two incomplete people attempt to create a relationship before they are ready, even when their intentions are sincere, they can end up hurting one another in ways neither of them intended. So destiny introduces distance between them. It seems to say, not yet. It recognizes that if these two people came together too quickly, they might destroy something that could eventually become extraordinary. They might allow fear, insecurity, attachment, pride, or unresolved wounds to damage a connection that required more maturity to survive. This separation can feel devastating, but it can also become a necessary part of the larger journey. It is not necessarily punishment. It can be preparation. When two people who share a powerful connection are forced apart, the emotional pain can feel completely different from an ordinary breakup. It is not simply sadness. It can feel like profound confusion. It can feel as though you have suddenly lost your direction and no longer understand what your heart is trying to tell you. You do not simply miss having that person around during your daily routine. Sometimes it feels as though an important part of your own inner foundation has suddenly disappeared. This happens because certain powerful connections are not based only on attraction, chemistry, or the human ego. They can become deeply connected to your personal evolution and inner development. When someone like this leaves your life, their absence can force your attention inward. It pushes you toward the internal issues you had been avoiding for years. You begin asking questions you never wanted to ask before. Who am I without their attention? Why did their presence affect me so deeply? What was I trying to receive from them that I had never learned to give myself? Leave a comment saying, "Destined," if you have ever experienced a connection that simply refused to leave your spirit alone. Maybe you have tried to forget someone, tried to move forward, or convinced yourself that the connection meant nothing, yet something inside you continued to remember. And sometimes the reason is not because you are supposed to remain stuck in the past. Sometimes the experience was meant to awaken something inside you that had been sleeping. You begin noticing your hidden fear of abandonment. You start recognizing how often you search for reassurance or approval from the people around you. You become aware of the subtle ways you give too much of yourself simply to prevent someone from leaving. You begin seeing how frequently you ignore your own needs because you are afraid that expressing them might push another person away. You recognize how often you depend on someone else's behavior to determine whether you feel emotionally secure. You may also discover the ways you avoid taking complete responsibility for your own emotional well-being. These realizations can be extremely uncomfortable because they challenge the version of yourself you believed you understood. But they are also essential for genuine growth. The pain you are experiencing is not necessarily there to destroy you. Sometimes it is there to wake you up. Sometimes losing someone forces you to finally meet yourself. Destined love, or what feels like a deeply significant connection, can carry a quiet power that changes you at your core. Even through long periods of silence, even when there is no communication, something can continue shifting within you. You may never receive an explanation from the other person. You may never get the closure you thought you needed. Yet internally, you begin changing in ways you cannot ignore. Even when your logical mind tells you to forget everything and move on, and even when there is complete silence between you, your inner world can continue transforming. You develop a stronger sense of self-awareness. You become more conscious of your emotional patterns. You begin understanding why certain behaviors affected you so deeply, and why certain situations repeatedly appeared in your relationships. You become much more intentional about the people you allow into your personal space. You begin protecting your peace instead of constantly sacrificing it for attention. You start standing up for your genuine feelings and creating stronger, healthier boundaries. The things you once accepted without questioning no longer feel acceptable. Situations you previously tolerated suddenly begin to feel exhausting and emotionally heavy. People you once chased after may no longer hold the same attraction or emotional power over you. You stop feeling impressed by inconsistent attention. You stop confusing temporary excitement with genuine connection. You start craving emotional depth instead of superficial validation. You begin realizing that being wanted is not the same thing as being valued, and being desired is not the same thing as being understood. Something inside you becomes more selective. You no longer want to give your energy to people simply because they are available. You want relationships that feel honest, meaningful, mutual, and emotionally mature. You begin understanding that love should not require you to abandon yourself just to keep someone else close. You start recognizing that your worth existed long before this person entered your life, and it will continue to exist regardless of whether they remain or leave. And this is where the deeper transformation begins. The separation may have originally felt like the end of your story, but slowly you realize that it may have been the beginning of a different version of yourself. The person you were before the connection may not be the person you become afterward. Your standards change, your awareness changes, your boundaries change, even your understanding of love begins to change. You stop asking only, "How do I get this person back?" and start asking, "Who am I becoming through everything I have experienced?" That question changes everything. Because sometimes the most important purpose of a powerful connection is not simply whether two people remain together immediately. Sometimes its purpose is to awaken both individuals, force them to grow, and prepare them to love from a healthier and more conscious place. The distance can therefore become meaningful. The silence can become revealing. The waiting can become transformative. What once felt like rejection may eventually teach you self-respect. What once felt like abandonment may teach you emotional independence. What once felt like losing someone may reveal that you had been losing yourself for far too long. And when you finally stop trying to force the outcome, something inside you becomes calm. You no longer need to chase signs every hour or interpret every small event as proof. You begin trusting your own growth. You understand that if a connection is genuinely meant to return to your life, it should return to the version of you that has learned how to stand firmly on your own. And if it does not return, the transformation you experienced still belongs to you. That is the part many people fail to understand about powerful connections. Their greatest gift may not always be the relationship itself. Sometimes the greatest gift is the person you become because you experienced it. You become stronger. You become more aware. You become less willing to settle for emotional confusion. You become capable of recognizing the difference between attachment and love, between fear and intuition, between chasing someone and choosing yourself. So if someone has recently walked away from your life and you are wondering why everything had to become so complicated, do not immediately assume that the story had no meaning. You do not have to force yourself to believe that this person is absolutely destined to return. Instead, look at what the experience has awakened inside you. Look at what you have learned. Look at the patterns you can now recognize that you could not see before. Because sometimes the separation is not the conclusion. Sometimes it is the preparation for a completely different chapter. And sometimes the greatest sign that something has changed is not that the other person suddenly comes running back. It is that you no longer feel like you need them to complete you. You have become whole in a way you were not before. You have learned how to protect your heart without closing it. You have learned how to love without losing yourself. You have learned that real connection should add to your life rather than become the foundation upon which your entire identity depends. And if two people are truly meant to walk the same path, they cannot remain exactly who they were when they first met. They must grow. They must confront themselves. They must release old patterns and become emotionally prepared for the kind of relationship they once only imagined. That is why the journey can feel so complicated before it becomes clear. The distance may have a purpose. The silence may have a lesson. The pain may be revealing something you were never willing to face while everything felt comfortable. And the transformation happening within you may be the very thing that changes the entire direction of your future. So do not underestimate what this season is doing inside you. You may believe nothing is happening because you cannot see movement on the outside. But internally, you may be becoming someone who will no longer accept the things you once accepted. You may be developing the emotional strength required to experience love without fear controlling every decision. And perhaps that is the universal pattern hidden inside so many powerful connections. Before there can be lasting union, there must first be inner transformation. Before two people can truly meet each other in a healthy way, they may have to meet themselves first. Before love can become stable, the fears that once controlled it have to be confronted. So if you are currently in a period of silence, uncertainty, or distance, do not automatically assume that your entire story has been erased. Take this time to become more deeply connected to yourself. Build your confidence. Strengthen your boundaries. Heal the parts of yourself that have been asking for attention. Stop chasing what refuses to meet you halfway. Stop measuring your worth through another person's actions. Let the experience teach you what it came to teach you. Let yourself grow beyond the version of you who needed constant reassurance. Let yourself become someone who can love deeply while still standing firmly in your own identity. Because when you finally reach that point, you understand something that you could not understand at the beginning. A meaningful connection is not supposed to make you smaller. It is supposed to reveal more of who you are. It is supposed to challenge you, awaken you, and encourage you to become more honest with yourself. And whether that person eventually returns, or whether life leads you somewhere completely unexpected, you will not be the same person who once waited for them. You will have gained something far more valuable than temporary reassurance. You will have gained a deeper understanding of yourself, your worth, your boundaries, and the kind of love you are truly capable of receiving. That is why sometimes the first sign of a powerful connection is not union. It is transformation. Not immediate closeness, but recognition. Not effortless comfort, but awareness. Not instant certainty, but a journey that forces you to become ready for whatever comes next. And perhaps, when the time is finally right, two people who have both grown beyond their old patterns can meet again from a completely different place. Not as two wounded people searching for someone to complete them, but as two whole individuals choosing one another freely. That is when love stops being something you desperately need and becomes something you consciously choose. And that difference can change everything. You begin searching for genuine connection rather than temporary comfort that only fills the silence for a short while. Most of the time, you do not even recognize that this enormous personal growth is directly connected to that particular person. Yet the transformation began the very moment they entered your life. They became a catalyst. They triggered a profound chain reaction deep within your soul. This kind of connection does not create toxic obsession. Instead, it produces deep self-reflection. You do not spend every day completely consumed by thoughts about them. Instead, you begin examining your own life, your personal patterns, and the decisions you make each day. You start thinking about who you truly are and who you are consciously becoming. You begin asking yourself much deeper and more meaningful questions. You ask yourself why you love the way you do, why genuine intimacy sometimes frightens you, and why you have allowed yourself to accept less than what you genuinely deserve. These powerful questions gradually rebuild you into a stronger and more self-aware person. Destined connections often work in subtle ways that are almost impossible to recognize on the surface. They may disappear from your everyday reality, but the impact they leave behind remains deeply engraved within your soul. They completely reshape the way you understand romantic relationships. They change the way you look at yourself. They raise your standards, not only for how other people should treat you, but also for how you treat yourself, how you carry yourself, and how much self-respect you are willing to maintain. They teach you an important lesson that real love is not simply about remaining together forever. Sometimes, it is about learning how to become whole within yourself first. As time moves forward, you begin noticing that you are simply unwilling to return to your old, unhealthy patterns. You stop chasing people who do not possess the emotional capacity to meet you on a deeper level. You stop overlooking obvious warning signs simply because you want to feel chosen by another person. You begin choosing peace, complete honesty, emotional maturity, and mutual effort. This transformation may feel completely natural, even though it was created through intense emotional pain. And that is exactly how you begin to understand that the connection had meaning from the very beginning. Destined love does not always arrive with a dramatic entrance. It does not always promise that two people will remain together for the rest of their lives. Sometimes it enters your world, changes who you are, and then moves forward. Other times, it temporarily disappears so that you can grow into a more evolved version of yourself, a version capable of carrying and protecting a genuine, lasting connection when the right time eventually arrives. Whether that person eventually returns to your life or never comes back is not actually the central purpose of the journey. The deeper purpose was your transformation, your awakening, and the permanent shift toward a much more conscious and meaningful way of living, loving, and understanding yourself. When two people are genuinely destined to affect one another, their story almost never follows a perfectly straight path. Instead, it moves through periods of distance, uncertainty, emotional confusion, and profound inner work. It pushes both people toward personal growth long before it allows genuine union to take place. And this repeating pattern is often the one constant element that continues appearing throughout the journey. You find yourself thinking about them at the exact moments when you are entering a higher level of awareness about who you are. You remember them while experiencing quiet and powerful changes deep within yourself. You think about them during peaceful nights, when everything around you becomes still, and the sound of your own inner thoughts becomes louder than everything happening in the outside world. You remember them during unexpected emotional breakthroughs that arrive without warning. These are the moments when you suddenly understand something profound about yourself that you were unable to see before. You are not thinking about them simply because you feel lonely. You are not remembering them because you desperately need attention, reassurance, or validation from another person. You think about them because something deep inside you recognizes that the connection carried a powerful meaning. And that meaning has not yet completely settled into your life. Your inner world naturally recognizes unfinished lessons. It understands that something significant was permanently awakened inside you through the experience of knowing them. This process does not mean you are emotionally weak. It does not automatically mean that you are obsessing over someone. It is not simply ordinary attachment in the way people often describe it. It can be understood as deep psychological integration. It is your inner self attempting to place a major emotional experience exactly where it belongs within your life story. It is your soul trying to absorb everything that experience came to teach you, while also trying to understand just how deeply it changed the direction of your journey. A truly meaningful, destined connection does not simply disappear because the months and years continue passing. It can remain quietly present in your life through subtle and unexpected ways. It returns to your awareness whenever you experience another level of personal growth. It appears again when you finally heal an old emotional wound. It resurfaces whenever you consciously move beyond an older version of yourself. This happens because the relationship was never only about romance or physical intimacy. At its deepest level, it was about your evolution. Type yes in the comments if you want me to reveal the hidden truth about destined love. So many people wonder why a connection of this magnitude can seem impossible to replace with another person. They genuinely try to replace it. They meet new people, they enter new relationships. They intentionally keep their minds occupied with endless conversations, social activities, entertainment, responsibilities, and busy routines. They tell themselves that moving forward means completely forgetting what happened. Sometimes they even convince themselves that they have finally succeeded in leaving the past behind. From the outside, everything appears completely normal again. They laugh with their friends, they attend gatherings, they build their careers, they focus on their ambitions, they continue living their everyday lives and appear to be moving forward. Yet somewhere beneath that surface, there is still a quiet feeling that something is unfinished. There is a persistent sense of emptiness that seems strangely resistant to disappearing. This does not necessarily happen because the new partner is cruel, uncaring, or incapable of giving love. It does not mean that the new relationship has no genuine effort, affection, or emotional value. The feeling remains because the new connection may simply fail to awaken that same profound depth within them. It does not reach the hidden places inside the human soul in the same way. It does not challenge them to confront themselves at the same level.